the Italian Football Podcast.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Italian Football Podcast, the official podcast of Football Italia. I'm Carlo Garganese, joined as always by Nima Tavali. On today's show, we will review the weekend Serie A action. Today is our 500th episode of the Italian Football Podcast. I can't believe it's been 500 already, Nima. So thank you everybody who has supported us from day one to all our listeners, all our patrons, all our guests. I guess I should thank Nima as well, I guess. But it's been a great journey, let's hope we can do 500 more episodes on this podcast. But in this 500th episode, we will be discussing, of course, Inter taking a massive step towards the Scudetto and perhaps probably ending Atalanta's Scudetto hopes in the process with a massive 2-0 win in Bergamo. Napoli fall 3 points behind Inter as they flop at relegation-threatened Venezia, drawing 0-0. Thiago Motta is at serious risk of the sack as Juventus are thrashed for the second week in a row, this time 3-0 to Fiorentina. He's refused to resign. Giuntoli has refused to sack him. The fans want him out. There's no doubt about that. We'll discuss all that. And Juventus have lost fourth place now to Bologna, who themselves thrashed Lazio 5-0 and are in incredible form, as are Roma in Serie A, as they win yet again, 7 wins in a row now in Serie A, responding to their Europa League exit by beating Cagliari. Milan might also be back in what is now an absolutely crazy race for fourth place. They come from behind to beat Como, for whom Dele Alli has a really disastrous debut. And we will preview Italy's Nations League quarter-final tie against Germany over the next week. We'll also have our usual Baggio, Premface and Serie ASS of the week. For all our first-time listeners, this is our free weekly episode that we do every Monday, reviewing the weekend Serie A action and all the biggest talking points in Italian football. If you want to support the Italian Football Podcast, receive all of our content that we do throughout the week without any ads, including a weekly Q&A episode every Tuesday, where we answer all of the questions from our patrons, plus the weekly Thursday midweek review show, plus interviews, post-match reaction, and much, much more, then go to patreon.com/TIFP and become a subscriber for just $3.99 a month plus VAT. You can also sign up to be a paid subscriber on Spotify. We'll provide the link in the description. For all of you who listen on Spotify, Apple's and iTunes podcasts, we'd really appreciate if you give us a 5-star rating, give us a follow, give us a like. Also, do subscribe to us on YouTube as well. You can become a patron on YouTube via YouTube memberships. Just go to our YouTube channel on youtube.com/@ItaFootPod for more details. Okay, let's get into today's show. So, the big game of the weekend, the big Sunday evening clash in Bergamo between Atalanta and Inter. A massive victory for Inter in terms of the Scudetto race. A huge weekend for Inter. They win 2-0 at Atalanta. Napoli drawing only at Venezia. It means that Inter have now gone 3 points clear over Napoli, 6 points now over Atalanta. And I think that really right now we have to say that Inter have half a hand on the Scudetto now. I mean, the way that things are mapping up, they got Udinese, Parma, Cagliari as their next 3 games. Napoli only 1 win in 6. Atalanta just not, as we saw in this game, just probably just not good enough really to win the Scudetto. I mean, it's all looking good now for Inter, Nima.
It's they go excuse me, they go into the international break in a very good position. I've said that in order for Inter to win this Scudetto, they're going to need a 3-4 point cushion going into April, which is going to be brutal for Inter. It's going to be absolutely brutal. 2 games against Milan, 2 games against Bayern Munich. Those games you mentioned. If they go through the Champions League, got another game as well. I mean, it's going to be absolutely brutal. And Inter, again, with the muscle injuries, are decimated. we have to wait and see how serious Denzel Dumfries' muscle injury is, even though Inzaghi was pretty optimistic and Inter took him off pretty quickly, even though he wanted to continue. So look, it's a good position for Inter to be in. They needed a bit of daylight between them and Napoli, and they got exactly that. And 6 points to Atalanta is going to be very important, especially because Atalanta do have a very, very tricky fixture list coming up. This is the first one of the Juventus game was the first one.
That
of the
doesn't really
tough run.
count, but yeah.
but
More on that later.
Yeah, more on that later. So it is a tricky. It does give into some peace and quiet, and they're going to need it because there's no chance they're going to go through April winning every single one of those games. They're going to have slip ups, and so you need a bit of like cushion to kind of fall back on, a safety cushion. And those 3 points to Napoli, above all, it's not a lot, but it does mean that if Inter draw a game, they'll still be top of the league if Napoli win. So it does provide a bit of safety for them, quote unquote. But yeah, it's overall. But for me, when I look at, I think the main conclusions I draw from this Scudetto race, about the Scudetto race rather, is I think I said I thought that Napoli were going to win it, and they were going to win it against Lecce away on match day 35. I think we can safely discard that. This is going to match day 38. I think this is not. I don't see this being decided until the very last match day. Do I think Atalanta have what it takes to bounce back? Well, they have the quality in attack, but I don't think they've got the experience and the mental stability to do it.
Yeah, I mean, we'll come back to Atalanta.
But
We'll talk about Atalanta in a bit.
yeah, I know. I just wanted to just say on the Scudetto race as a whole that I think this is Inter Napoli to the wire. And even though we're going to talk about Napoli as well because their form is horrendous. It is an interesting Scudetto race from that aspect that it's a very it's a proper title race without any team running away with it, something we're not used to. If you remember, we've not had this for a very long time. Juve won 9 in a row, Inter won clearly under Conte. Then you had that season when Milan won. It was
that was the only one, really.
That was the only one. But then you had Napoli running away. So we've not had a proper title race like this in a really long time. That Milan one was a little bit different as well, in the sense that it wasn't really a title race. It just Milan just ran. They were on fire, and they just Pioli, and they won 7 games in a row. But this is a proper title race. There's no real clear team in form. Everyone can drop points at any point, at any time. But what I will say from an Inter perspective is that the attack is looking good again.
Yeah, just before you could talk about the attack, just to finish off on this title race thing, look, my view is throughout the season has always been, I predicted Inter to win the title. And I've always said that throughout the season, even during their periods where they haven't been, at their best, and they have dropped a level this season, no doubt about it. And we talked about their physical decline at times, although it wasn't shown in this game. That I've always said that if Inter play near to their level, and they reasonably near to their level, they're going to win the Scudetto. I've always said that, and I stick by that now. And we've got to remember, we're talking about an Inter team who have. I saw this said on the commentary on TNT, so I haven't checked this myself. I'm going on this second hand, but Inter apparently have 14 points less right now than they did at this time last season. Yet they're still 3 points clear. So I guess that shows a couple of things. One, it shows kind of this hasn't been a great Serie A season in terms of the teams at the top and in terms of the quality. But it also shows that Inter, even playing away from their level, are still better than the rest. So I think that this is kind of where we're at with Inter. I think if they play near their level, they're always going to win the Scudetto, even if they're going to be pushed physically. I think it's on Inter to really kind of throw this away and really drop loads and loads of points for them not to win the Scudetto. That's how I see it.
Yeah, I think drop loads and loads. they have to manage the games, and I think Inzaghi so far after that Juventus loss, they've played 7 games, they've won 6, drawn 1. The only draw coming against Napoli, and some of that is a bit like the Napoli game. They were outplayed. They literally had just one shot on target. It was Di Marco free kick. The rest was just Napoli dominating, but they managed to go through it and get the result. And that's what Inter have to do right now. Forget about everything else. Just relax and focus on getting the result. And that kind of has ironically helped them to play better, especially in the final third. But that's really, that's one of those paradoxes, isn't it? Because all season been waiting for Inter to play well. They haven't played well, and then now they just don't care about playing well. Just focus on winning, and suddenly they start playing well, which is paradoxical to a certain extent, but not really either, because like you said about the quality, and we know what this Inter side can do. But it's I do feel, looking at Inter, the way that they played against Atalanta, especially in attack, was so good. They created so much. They had 4 big chances, no penalty, XG of 2.45. I mean, that is just outstanding. Yeah. Marcus Thuram missing what was a sitter. Unlucky, hit the post, but he has to bury that. The Lautaro is at his best now. He's looking better than he's done all season. If he's not at his best, he's very close to his best. His movement, he looks light in his movement. He looks fresh. Inter need him to be this good. Thuram is moving towards his best. Çalhanoğlu is not at his best, but he's also moving towards his best. Acerbi, oh my God.
Dominated Retegui.
He again, another striker in his pocket. I don't know what.
And he played 2 games last week as well, didn't he?
Yeah.
Did he play the full? Because De Vrij got it. Yeah. So yeah. That's mad.
No, it's he got injured. De Vrij got injured in the warm up, didn't he?
Yeah.
Against the Feyenoord. No, he was outstanding. Again, outstanding. And now he's got Harry Kane to deal with in the Champions League, which is going to be very important. He's already pocketed him for Italy, if I don't, I'm not mistaken. I mean, he does. He's not as good as he was 2 seasons ago when Inter went to the Champions League final. I think that was his finest moment in his career. He was genuinely the best central defender defensively in the world. He just was unplayable. But he's not there. He's a little bit off that, but he looks really good, and he's got this kind of. He's so solid. He's so experienced. He knows how to read games, and he commands that defense. And everyone just kind of falls in line when he's there. He's a natural leader, and that's really important for Inter. But we have to. I mean, again, the attack to me was what impressed me the most. The movement, the fluidity. It's not perfect like it was last season, but it's moving towards that, and that's very encouraging. You want to be in a situation where your big players are coming into form as you reach the business end of the season. So. Yes, Inter are the favorites before the Scudetto. Before the season began, of course, Inter were the favorites, and they are still the favorites, and they will, regardless of who wins the Scudetto, Inter will have been the favorites. Whether they can live up to that favoriteship or not is another issue.
Yeah, we also saw in this game again. I repeat myself. I've been saying it for 2 years now, but I call them Cross FC, and I don't mean that as a. I don't mean that in a bad way. They're monsters of crosses. Another goal scored off a set piece. Del Gusto goal breaks the deadlock. It's 0-0 at that time, and this. Inter are absolutely brilliant at set pieces and crosses. But let's just talk about set pieces and corners. They've scored the most goals in Serie A from corners. They don't barely concede off corners as well. In football, the number one way of scoring goals is off set pieces and crosses. If you can make your team or world class in this area, then you've got a chance of going very far. I mean, Mikel Arteta's Arsenal have basically built their entire last few years of being great at crosses. That is that, and that's why I always say Inter have always got a chance to win games when they're playing badly, because it doesn't matter how badly you're playing, there's always going to be corners and set pieces in games. And if you can deliver the ball the way that Çalhanoğlu and Di Marco and some of the and Barella can, if if you've got the aerial threat, if you've worked on the training ground as brilliantly and drilled as well as Inter do, then you've always got a chance. And I also want to praise Augusto as well.
Yeah, before you go do that, I just want to say it's funny you mentioned that, because this was a game where the crossing was poor. That goal was the first real decent cross. I mean, for about 50 minutes, Çalhanoğlu couldn't even get past the first man on corners and crosses. But there he did, and it was beautiful.
Even in a bad crossing game.
Yeah, no, but seriously, it's crazy, because it wasn't just him; it was all of them. They couldn't cross to save their lives. Bastoni, Çalhanoğlu, all of them. But they got that 1-1.
I'd like to see Inter's number of goals Inter have scored this season that haven't been crosses or set pieces, because the Monza game, all the goals came off, all started from crosses as well. I mean, they're just monsters. They're monsters on crosses. And Augusto, I just want to say also, just to finish off on it from me, I wanted to say that Augusto is so underrated.
Agreed.
He's so reliable. He's so versatile. He's fantastic at left wing back. He's fantastic at as a centre back, and he never complains. He's good from the start. He's good as a he's very complete. He's good going forward. He's in terms of he's dangerous. Like, he pops up with goals. But he's also excellent defensively as well. He also got one of the best hair transplants in football as well. I mean, he needs more love, Augusto.
No, I agree. I think I liked him already when he was in Serie B with Monza. I thought it was a really interesting player there, and I was really happy when Inter got him, because of the fact that I like the fact that he can play in so many different roles. I like the fact that he's a left wing back and a left centre back that, unlike Federico Di Marco, understands that you have to close your opponents down and doesn't just concede with his arms behind his back and stand off, conceding space all the time to the attacker. He's good aerially. He's a good passer. He's actually pretty decent with his right foot as well. No, it's a good squad player to have. Like you said, doesn't complain, and he was good. He was good yesterday. I really liked what he did yesterday.
Yeah,
but
shall we move on to Atalanta?
Yeah. I just want to. Yeah, we can do that. Yeah, go for it.
Oh, actually, I do want to say one thing, just in the matter of fairness, because I complained I didn't complain. I said it could have been disallowed last week. I didn't say it should have been disallowed. But this week I can say 100% that the goal that was disallowed for Lautaro, it didn't matter in the end. So it's I'm not going to cry over it. But that was a ridiculous disallowed goal for Lautaro. Like, he barely touched the guy. That there is, but I guess that's also what I mean. Like, if you push a guy, they often get given those. But this was ridiculous. Like, that goal got this.
Massa ruined this game. This was not a game with 2 sending offs and 1 sending off from the bench. The only reason we had this shit show at the end is because of Massa's inconsistent refereeing, that from minute 1 to minute 100, because of the injury of the medical emergency of the person in the crowd, he completely destabilized this game. He made everyone nervous. He allows a really highly physical game, and then he disallows a goal for that. He doesn't give a yellow card for finger wagging on Bastoni, but he does it for him Ederson applauding. Then he sends Bastoni off for something that's barely a free kick. I mean, it's just, he was all over the place.
3 red cards with Gasperini.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
This was not a game with 3 red cards. This is all on Massa. He completely destabilized and ruined this game.
No, for sure. I mean, coming on to Atalanta and that red, let's start off with Ederson. I mean, first of all, Ederson is stupid. Like, by the laws, he deserves to be red card. Like, obviously, we don't know what he said, but if he said something worthy of dissent, it's a yellow card. And then
2 yellow cards.
Two yellow cards, yeah, but if you clap after a yellow card, you're going to get a yellow card. That's in the rules. Now, if you ask me about that rule, I say it's absolutely ridiculous, laughable, outdated, dinosaur rule that you get a yellow card for clapping.
Everybody knows that's what happened.
Like the same with the blasphemy rule, which is in 2025. The fact that we've got rules. We've got laws where you get a yellow card or a red card in the case of
you can get suspended.
Yeah, you get suspended.
If somebody sticks a camera in your face when you don't want to talk to anyone because you're angry and disappointed.
Yeah, now, I mean, in 2025, the fact that you can get, in the heat of the moment, you can get a yellow card for clapping the referee. I mean, I think it's ridiculous, but he knows it's the law, and it's stupid from Ederson. When you're 1-0 down, and you're trying to chase an equaliser, which you get an equaliser, you're still 3 points behind him, so you're still kind of in there. And then it was all over as soon as he gets that red card. So that's number one. But number two, I think, listen, the simple thing here is like, as we said, Inter dominated this game. They deserved to win. Like you said, 2.5 XGs. I think they're 0.6. Like the bottom line is this: Atalanta are not at Inter's level, and they're not at Scudetto level. I'm sorry. As much as we love them, as much as we all, as neutrals, we would all love to see them win the Scudetto. It would be absolutely incredible, especially in today's age, that a team with the budget of a championship team could win the league, or do what they did and win the Europa League last season. I mean, it's a fairy tale, but the bottom line is they're not good enough. Inter, when they play at their level, are, as I said before, they're far better than everyone in Serie A, but they're far better than Atalanta. And Atalanta's form in 2025. Well, let me read it out for you: 1-5, drawn 6, lost 7 in all competitions, and they're without a win in their last 6 Serie A matches at home, and that's included games against Venezia, Cagliari, Torino. That's mid-table level form. That is in 2025. It's not Scudetto level. So, it's almost kind of ridiculous, the idea that this game was painted as a Scudetto match, which mathematically it was before the game. But the idea that a team with that form, that consistency, is in the race for the Scudetto, again, kind of shows probably the lack of quality in Serie A this season at the top. But it also, for Atalanta, I think their entire season, if we're being perfectly honest, because they started badly as well, their entire season has been carried by that long winning run they had. They had an 11-game winning run. Either side of that, their record is really very poor. It's 1-6, drawn 7, lost 5 is their record this season. Either side of that winning run, so it's just not good enough. They've had these big winnings, thrashing Juventus 4-0 the week before. I think they've had 6 5-goal wins this season. But then you have performances like this, and you can't beat relegation teams. And so this is Atalanta. Unfortunately, they're not at the Scudetto level. Unfortunately.
No, I agree. I think it was always going to be it was always a fool's hope that Atalanta were going to be Scudetto contenders or win the Scudetto would require a miracle. I just don't think that defense is good enough, and I haven't thought that defense is good enough. Although I have to say, I thought Tijjani actually did really well yesterday. But regardless, it's I agree with that. I don't think they're good enough. And as for for me, what annoys me about Atalanta's season is that they didn't go further in the Champions League, because I think the football they play, the style of football they play, the kind of football they play pays off more in Europe than it does in Italy. In Italy, the team with the best defense usually wins the Serie A. That's just how it is. Whilst the way that they dominate and take games to teams, and if they could be more efficient, which they usually are, then they can do something miraculous in Europe. And the Club Brugge game, although it was conditioned by that that penalty, the return leg, Atalanta missed penalties. Atalanta had chance after chance after chance. They hit post. A little bit more efficiency, they win that game. And they're through to the quarterfinal. Or they would have been through to the round of last 16. And who knows what they could have done in that game. So I'm only disappointed in Atalanta because of that, because I think they've shown that they do have the quality and now the routine in Europe. In the Serie A, there's quite a bit lacking. Their record against Inter, I think, is it 8 losses in a row now that they've lost to Inter. I think Atalanta are the team, during the Gasperini era, Inter are the team that he has lost the most to. It's just crazy how abysmal their record is to Inter, and the reason they lose these games to Inter over and over again is because Gasperini, he embodies the term, the Einstein quote about repeating the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, being the definition of madness, because he keeps playing this stupid man pressing over the pitch against Inter, knowing full damn well that Inter love that he does that, because Inter have the players to pull Atalanta apart and open up spaces. Just look at that first chance that Thuram had when he hit the post.
Yeah, that was not acceptable to get opened up like that.
But they do this every
Well, it's no
single
coincidence that
time.
Inter's ridiculous record they've got over Atalanta. How many wins is it now?
I think it's 8 in a row
I mean,
now.
that's insane. I mean, if and you still don't change,
It still doesn't do
you
it.
still
It's
don't
just,
change it. And I guess
it's like,
that's probably a weakness of Gasperini. And it's also, maybe a concern. If we're talking about potential Italy national team job, for example, that you've got to be able to. I like having an identity. It's important in modern football to have a clear identity and to stick with the way that you play. But when you lost 7 games in a row, you've got to be a little bit pragmatic and flexible enough to tweak your system a little bit, you know. And yet they go the same way. They get opened up, and they, like you said, I mean, that's how he is. He will never change. The only other thing, last thing I wanted to say about Atalanta, Retegui was terrible in this game, and I've just noticed, and Spalletti also, I saw Spalletti had some words on this a few days ago as well. That going into this season, we were like, well, we know Retegui's fantastic finisher, we know he's fantastic in the box, but is his game outside the box good enough? Is his link-up play, back to goal, is that all good enough, really, for a top team? And he surprised us. And the first half of the season, he was really very impressive with his back to goal. I've noticed in the last few months, he seems to have declined a bit with his game outside of the box, and his touch outside the box and his link up with his teammates. He's definitely gone back closer towards what it was with Genoa in some of these performances. And we saw that in this game where everything that was coming to him, he wasn't holding it up, he was losing it. And I just hope that this is just, it's kind of strange because he was really showed a massive improvement in this aspect in the first half of the season, and now he's just, I don't know what's happened.
I think he's a little bit out of form, and
I hope
I think,
that's what it is. I just hope.
no, because but he doesn't move as like generally in his movement isn't like it was in the beginning of the season. I think it's a little bit out of form. A little bit could be an injury that's hampered him. We know that he was away from injury
Or
for
he's
a
played
while.
too much at the start of the season. Maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Could be something like that as well. But I'm happy with this because he's going to be a couple cannoniere. I still think he's going to get his 25 to 29 goals. That's going to be a landmark season for him. Then, there's still margin of improvement, and that's good. We want that. We want players to improve, take the next step, and the next season build on this. Whether that is with Gasperini or not, or wherever he goes, if he goes to Juve, if he goes to wherever he goes, this is a very important season that he has had to build on, and it's important for the Italy national team, especially when you look how Raspadori is doing well. Moise Ken has been outstanding. There's lots of Lorenzo Lucas had a great season. Like it's really been the renaissance of the Italian striker this season in the Serie A, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, for sure. Napoli. So Napoli flop. Let's just be let's just put it simply. It's a massive blow for them in the Scudetto. So they now fall 3 points behind. Up from 1. You can't win. You can't win the Scudetto not beating Venezia away from home, and you can't win the Scudetto in the form that Napoli are in. 1 win in 6, and
7. It's
after the
7
improved,
games.
is it
It's
7?
7 games. Yeah,
Oh, is it 1 win in 7?
Yeah, one.
Oh,
Yeah, they've got. I've looked it up. They've got 5 draws, 1 loss, and 1 win.
okay, my bad. So it's 1 win in 7. So it's even worse. It's even worse.
But this is the funny thing. That comes on the back of
Some
7 straight wins.
Yeah, and also, and what's disappointing about this is that we thought that they'd maybe turned a bit of a corner
Yeah.
because they were improved showings against Inter and against Fiorentina where they played well, and then we're kind of back to what the Napoli was before. I thought that probably, to be honest with you, in the overall, they probably had enough chances to probably win this game by a goal, and the first half they certainly were unfortunate in that former Inter guy who probably cost them the Scudetto a couple of years ago, made 2 unreal saves from McTominay and especially against Lukaku. I mean, brilliant saves. But the second half, they were horrendous, Napoli. They barely even had a chance. And it's just until that Simeone one right in injury time. But again, we saw kind of what we've seen kind of this year. The attack, like lacking quality, lacking creativity, lacking spark, just lacking a Kvaratskhelia. I thought Raspadori was bright, kind of first 10 minutes, had a couple of shots. Then he was pretty anonymous. Lukaku was marshalled really well by Kande, who really impressed me. Politano was
Yeah,
horrendous. His delivery was awful. And really, the only danger man consistently in this game was Spinazzola.
I was going to
He was
say,
the only
yeah.
one kind of beating his man. And then Conte,
Mm,
for some reason, took him off.
yeah.
So again, I don't want to repeat myself. It comes down to the January market again. They
Well, you
didn't
see, I
score.
don't want to. I think there's more to that, because if you look at, yes, the January market is important, but if you look at,
Well, it predates that January,
well,
yeah.
no, but if not just this market, but if you look at the teams, if you look at Roma, Lazio, Inter, they drew those games. Those are acceptable results. Drawing against away to Napoli, to Roma and Lazio, and drawing at home to Inter, those are acceptable results. Losing the way they did to Como, not beating Venezia, and not beating Udinese at home, those are the ones that are unacceptable. And that, you can't, as much as we both praised Antonio Conte as being a tactical genius, and he, overperforms and so on. I'm sorry, but those results are just not good enough. He has to find a way to at least win 2 of those 3 games, because if he does, that's 4 more points. They're 1 point ahead of Inter. Like, these things, I just blame on him. That he has to go. Some of the share of the blame has to go to him as well. Napoli are good enough to beat Venezia away. They're good enough to beat Udinese at home. 1 win in 7 when you've played these teams is just not good enough, and that has to go on Conte as well. We can't just blame ADL for everything. I'm sorry, we can't. And because the quality of the Napoli side may not be good enough to win the Scudetto, but it sure as hell is good enough to beat Udinese at home and Venezia away. I'm sorry, it just is. And Conte needs, this is sometimes the negative aspect of Conte, that he can freeze a little bit, and he just doesn't really have this kind of plan B to go to, even though he famously once told Anabillo, I think it was, and Fabio Capello, that he does have a plan B, and he's not going to sit here and tell it to them.
Well, maybe
But
show it to us, maybe.
yeah, exactly. Don't tell us. Show us, Antonio. It's
Yeah,
show and tell, like in school. But
yeah.
we have to acknowledge that. We
Well, I
can't
mean, I
just
think we can
blame him.
criticise his subs in this game.
Yeah,
No changes to the 75th minute, when you could see in that
yeah,
second half that up until that 75th minute, they they were doing nothing. I mean, it was so obvious for at least 20 minutes before then, and they needed to make a change. But then he makes 4 subs at once, which creates complete confusion. You do not make 4 changes at once and expect to have a team that's going to be playing with any kind of chemistry and fluency at all, and it made things even worse actually. So but at the end of the day, also at the same time, as we've also said, I do also have sympathy. Like Conte said, who do I put on? Like who has he got to put on in these games? I mean, the quality just isn't there. I mean, this team, again, I'll say it again, this team has no pace. I mean, this team is so slow. The lack of pace in
it's
this team
sluggish, isn't it? It's
is.
like, it's really
Well, go
heavy.
through all the players. Where's the speed in this team? They're all
Yeah,
slow
it's
or old.
heavy. It's
And
heavy.
Neres is the only player that brings pace to this team.
Yeah,
And he's obviously injured at the moment. There's very little creativity, and they're relying on Spinazzola at 33, somebody who we all thought was finished, but has had like this little mini renaissance, and actually
yeah.
is actually playing really, really well at the moment. He's the one that's all the chance creations coming through Spinazzola. Everything. He's the only one that eliminates his man, creates overloads, creates chances. It's all on Spinazzola right now during this recent run. So yeah, this is where Napoli are at. I'm not counting them out. It's still only 3 points, but it's, again, I'll go back to what I said. I really feel like if Napoli or someone else is going to win the Scudetto, I think it's going to be Inter having to drop quite a lot of points, because I look at this Napoli team, I look at the quality of it. Anybody that's watched them all season, even when Cavaro was there,
Yeah.
it's an ordinary team. I'm sorry, it is. It's a team that doesn't create much, that don't score much, have to really fight and battle just to win
For
games.
everything, yeah.
Yeah, fight for everything, even against these small teams.
Yeah.
And you just can't do that for a whole season. And the idea, I think, of 9 games left, that Napoli can go on some 9-game winning run, I mean, they could, but it's going to be very difficult to do so. So, yeah, it's like I said, I think it's on Inter really. I think Inter have to more give it away, I think, than the other teams win it. That's where I'm at.
I think that's fair. But at the same, but it is one of those seasons where it's
Yeah, you
it
don't
feels
know.
so. Yeah, it does. It is one of those seasons where you don't have anyone flying off the blocks. Yesterday, when Inter beat Atalanta, that was the first time. It was the first. They've beaten Atalanta twice, but out of the big, direct rival encounters, that's pretty much the only game, the only games they've won. One draw, one loss against Milan and Juve, two draws against Napoli. Okay, they have two wins against Atalanta, but it's not one of those seasons where Inter are blowing everyone out of the water. So it's going to be tight. It's going to be tight until the end. And one thing about Napoli is it's like they struggle against Venezia and Udinese, but they do really well against Juve, Atalanta, Milan, Inter, Milan. Like it's as if when they're up against teams with a higher quality that want more of the possession, then contest teams excel. And if they've got they've got Milan and Bologna coming up. Do I think they can win both of those games? Yes, I do. But then can they drop points the following week at home to Empoli? Yes. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's one of those kinds of seasons, not just for Napoli, but across the Serie A, across the board in the Serie A. And so that's why I think this thing is far from over. And it's absolutely going to the wire. I just don't see anyone. I think we're looking at the lowest, literally at 82, 81 points, whoever wins the Scudetto, which is very low.
Yeah, I think that's possible. You know what is also going to be very, very tight is the top four race. It's or the race for fourth place. Let's say, which is now absolutely insane after this weekend's results. And I'll just read out what it is so everybody can see how ridiculously tight it is. So if I just bring up the Serie A table, we've got Bologna now in fourth with 53 points. Juventus in fifth with 52. Lazio in sixth with 51. Roma now in seventh with 49. Fiorentina in eighth with 48. And Milan in ninth with 47. So from Milan in ninth to Bologna in fourth, we've got 6 points separating six places. I mean, it's pretty crazy. And this is all after Juventus were thrashed 3-0 by Fiorentina. Before the game, there was a tifo that was held up by the Fiorentina fans that said Juventus merda or Juve merda. And merda means shit. And I think that pretty much described not only Juventus's performance, but pretty much describes Juventus as a team, as a club right now. There's two strands to this, really. I think we're at the point now. 4-0 loss to Atalanta, 3-0 defeat to Fiorentina. We're at the point now where we're way past the whole analysing the performances of Juventus. We're way past that. It's a waste of time. It's completely broken now on the pitch. Number one, we have to be honest. Motta has to go. He has to go now. There's 9 games left. And Motta, though, refused to resign at full time. And Giuntoli has said, and he said very clearly, publicly, he won't be sacked. Now, if that proves to be the case, which right now it seems like it is, I think that's a big mistake because it's clearly completely broken now with Motta. There is nothing that is working on the pitch. The defence is a complete state, conceding 7 goals in 2 games. The midfield is a total joke. The attack does nothing, creates nothing. As a team, individually, psychologically, the team is completely broken after a 7-0 defeat, 7-0 aggregate score in the last 2 games. And right now, I mean, you keep Motta. Do you think Juventus are going to finish in the top 4 with that crazy race that is on that I said, and with Bologna and Roma in amazing form, with Milan coming back into it, with so many teams fighting out, so many teams that are playing better than Juventus. Juventus are 5th now. They're probably the worst performing team on form out of all of those. Then maybe Lazio as well. I think that you have to think that, as we said, it's financial Armageddon if Juventus don't qualify for the top 4. Forget about the long-term plans. If Juventus don't qualify for the top 4, that the amount of money that they're going to lose from not being in the Champions League. We saw the effect of not being in Europe. Okay, they might be in Europe. They might not even be in Europe actually either. If you're not in Europe, you lose up to 100 million. They might not even be in Europe altogether, but you're out the Champions League. You're looking at maybe 40, 50 million. And then that's before you get to all the sponsorships. You still don't have a sponsor, which is ridiculous. But financially, it's Armageddon. The effect that has on a team a club that's economically already needing to balance the books and make sales and sacrifices, is a total disaster. I think that short term, Juventus, they need to get rid of Motta. They need to bring in someone for the final 9 games of the season and just hope that they can give him that new manager bounce, which we know exists. Bring in a new manager, he gives you a bounce, and that somehow gives them the jolt to somehow get 4th. 5th is not going to be enough for Champions League now after Roma lost to Athletic Bilbao. I think we can safely say that. So I think Motta has to go, Nima. What do you think?
I think you're right. I tweeted it out. Lost to Empoli in the Coppa Italia on penalties. Knocked out by PSV in the Champions League. 0-7 against Atalanta and Fiorentina in 2 games in a row in the Serie A, where they were outclassed, outplayed, ripped apart. A team without any identity, without anything. Players that look completely mentally broken. In 5th spot now, 1 point behind Bologna. You have an international break. Now's the time to do it. If you don't do it now, then you're going to have to go with Motta. The risk is, it's about risk management. If you keep him beyond the international break, well, you're going to have to keep him until the end of the season and risk not getting to the Champions League with him. And even if you get to the Champions League with him, do you want to continue with this? Is there anything salvageable here? This is what I don't understand. When I look at this Juve and I see lots of players that are not going to be there next season, regardless of if they make the Champions League or not. And I'm seeing a manager that doesn't seem to, the players don't seem to, there's no feeling between them. They look disjointed. They don't look like a team. They look, whatever there existed in the beginning of the season that made them look like a team is not there anymore.
No, everything's gone.
Everything's gone.
Everything's collapsed.
Everything is laid down to bare bones.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking, what is it you're trying to salvage?
No, and I think that they have to look past this summer, because they're in a financial situation where their future, their next 3 to 4 years, is dependent on finishing in the top 4, getting into the Champions League. Because if you don't, then the club gets put back probably another couple of years, probably, by not being in the Champions League, because of the financial effects of that. The blow might be softened a little bit by being in this Club World Cup, which will actually bring in some money. So that might actually soften the blow a little bit, but still, it's massive. It's absolutely massive for the whole development of this so-called project. So I think thinking thinking on, they just have to think now, short term, how do we get in the top 4? Do we have a more chance of getting in the top 4 with Motta or with another manager? I think the answer is anybody can answer that question. The Juventus are completely broken, and like you said, there's nothing left of this team. The only thing that's been consistent in the first half of the season was that Juventus were very solid defensively and they were well structured, and they controlled games without.
But that doesn't exist anymore.
That doesn't exist. That's all gone as well. So there's literally nothing. There's not even the defensive and the shape of the team that's gone as well, and all the problems that they had before there are still as well, which is offensively, creatively, they're creating and not scoring. They're not creating or scoring. So I think he has to go. I think it's a mistake keeping him. But there we are. But if we're looking at the bigger picture, once again, as I've said, again, I don't want to repeat what I said last week, or I think it was 2 Mondays ago. So listen to that show. The bigger problem at Juventus is above Motta. It is the club itself, the way that the club is being run from the top, in the management, through all the major departments. It is being run incompetently. And as long as that is the case, as long as Elkan is at the top of the tree, and we know he doesn't have a clue about football and he doesn't care about Juventus, cares more about attending Bilderberg meetings. As long as we've got Elkan there, as long as we've got Ferrero as the president, does anybody know what he does? I think a lot of Juventus fans don't even know he's the president. By the way, that tells you what he does. Then you've got Giuntoli, who's been a complete failure. Watching Lord Kelly yesterday, I mean, I'm sorry, but Lord Kelly, 23 million for signing him for 23 million is a sackable offence on its own. But this guy Costa that they brought in for 15, 16 million, I mean, I don't want to jump the gun. It's still early, but my God, you know what? He looks like someone picked up off the street so far. This guy. I mean, I don't want to. I don't want to. Sound ignorant because I honestly I don't watch. I didn't watch him in Portugal at all. But he was talked about as this really bright young talent. They paid 15 million for him, but oh my God. I mean, he looks like. Do you know what I mean? I wonder if he's an imposter. He reminds me of when Graham Souness for Southampton signed a player that he was told was George Weah's cousin, and it ended up being some complete fake guy who completely scammed him. And he came onto the pitch for a game. I think it was in 1996. The footage is on YouTube, and the guy couldn't even trap a ball or run or anything. And he subbed him off within 10, 15 minutes. He completely like scammed him. He wasn't George Weah's cousin at all. It was just some random that had somehow managed to get a game in the Premier League. I mean, this is what this guy looks like. So there's Junsony, and then there's everything else. There's the commercial department, and we don't even have a sponsor. I mean, how embarrassing is that for Juventus? There's the medical department and the amount of injuries that the Juventus have. I mean, and then I've spoken to people, from that know the inner workings of the club and how, there's no synergy. Nobody's reporting to anybody. Nobody knows who's in charge. And I could go on and on. So until Juventus sort out their leadership, this is going to continue to happen. They're going to go through manager and manager, go through player after player. Things are not going to improve. They're going to be completely merged. They are right now the Italian Man United. And Man United have gone through 12 years now and counting of this. And they bring in manager after manager and top player after top player, and they all fail. And everybody then blames the manager and says, we need to sack the manager. Well, yes, Juventus do need to sack the manager for short term, as I've said. But nothing will change. The Juventus will never be Juventus. Well, these people are in charge of the club. It's as simple as that. And I think we're at the stage now, and there were reports last week about I was going to say Gianni Agnelli there. Andrea Agnelli coming back.
Hello, Mr. Freud.
Yeah. Andrea Agnelli coming back.
With the Saudis,
with
which
a Saudi,
I found absolutely hilarious.
With a consortium or something. I mean, there were reports like that. I mean, Juventus or Elkan has denied it. But
of course he's denied it.
I mean, I don't see that happening. And obviously, there's a lot of politics involved as well, including with UEFA and Elkan, and why that might not be possible. But I think that right now, the only person that maybe can come back and try and rebuild this club is Agnelli. I think they need to start thinking about bringing an Andrea Agnelli back, because
he has a criminal trial he first needs to win. So I think that's something he needs to worry about right now, because let's remember the fallout from the Prisma investigation is not yet decided in the criminal case. So he needs to worry about that right now before he can talk about coming back to winning, coming back to getting Juve to win. Regardless, it's they can't continue like this, because Elkan needs to understand that even though he's not interested and this, that, and the other, if Juventus don't make the top four, where's that money going to come from? And if they continue to cut, and if they just cut, and there's no sponsor, like at some point, he has to take up an interest, or if he's not interested, he has to appoint someone who is interested, who knows what they're doing, and preferably isn't under criminal investigation. That would be a good start. But they can't continue like this. They just can't continue like this, because it's just it's not working. And the Thiago Motta, I remember 2 seasons ago when people wanted to sack Simone Inzaghi and replace him with Thiago Motta. I thought that was a bit premature. Well, now with Thiago Motta, who I still think is a good coach, I think he'll have a great career. I just think that Juventus, where they were, and was not what he needed as a young coach who needed to learn on the job, because that's what he's doing. He's learning on the job. Coaches that learn on the job need a safe, stable environment around them. Juventus is anything but those things.
Absolutely. But not even just for young coaches. I think we can actually extend that and say...
to players as well, yeah?
Well, yeah, players. But no, I mean, with the managers, I think we can extend that and say that, let's assume that Motta goes at the end of the season, whatever happens. I mean, I think that surely has to be the case now, even if they get top four. But who Juventus hire next. If I'm a manager, I'm talking about this from the manager's point. We discussed it from the other side already. If we're talking about the manager, I would advise against managers going to a club where that is being run as badly as I've just described, because it is almost impossible for a manager to succeed in those circumstances. That we've seen that at Man United for 12 years. The club is such a mess that whatever manager comes in, whether they're a world-class coach, whether they're an attacking coach, a defensive coach, doesn't matter who comes in, they all fail because you can't succeed in an environment like Man United's. And I think it's the same for Juventus, and I would say the same for Milan as well. When they hire in a new coach this summer, I would be very wary becoming the new manager of Milan when the club is the way that the club is being run. And I think that is what any manager needs to think about, because it's just impossible. What can you do? And that's why I think that when everybody goes after Motta, and yes, he's been a disaster. There's no doubt about it, and he has to go. But I think that people need to think that, especially Juventus fans, if you want Juventus to get back to being Juventus again, just change the manager. It's not going to solve anything. I do think the manager should go, but I'm saying that there needs to be competent people in charge, and that needs to be with someone like an Agnelli, somebody that can
absolutely
take
someone
charge
who
and
cares.
be the leader of the project. It needs to be
someone who knows what he's doing.
Yeah,
and that clearly isn't this current leadership, and I think it extends beyond just Giuntoli.
No, absolutely, it goes above Giuntoli.
So it's it's quite the mess,
and that's who the Juventus fans should be. That's what the Juventus fans should be calling for. They should be calling for changes above. That's where and that's the only way Juventus are going to be back. Otherwise, it's going to be the same next season with whoever the coach is next season. It's just, unfortunately, that's what it is.
No, it is a little bit. It does have the feeling of, regardless of who you bring in, it's a little bit Snoopy Band-Aid on a gunshot wound situation. It's like, it's not going to solve it, is it?
No.
And it's. I personally still think that if we're going to put a Snoopy Band-Aid on a gunshot wound, I'd rather it be a big enough Snoopy Band-Aid named Roberto Mancini, who has been in difficult clubs, who's been in difficult jobs, who's been in very, very demanding situations, and knows how to stop a bleeding. But if Juventus are going to start challenging again for titles and build something that is worthy da Juve, then it's going to have to require other changes, like it did after the last time the Elkan wing of that family were in charge and they were thrown out, and Andrea Agnelli took over and he appointed Marotta and Paratici and he brought in Antonio Conte, and the rest is history, right? So it's definitely a complex
Fiorentina
situation.
though, massive win. Obviously, beating Juventus, their great rivals, is always massive for them. And I thought actually some really great strikes in this game, like in front of Gabriel Batistuta, who was president, the Fiorentina legend. He would have been proud, I thought, of the Goodmanson strike. I thought that was a world class strike. The way that
he's a good striker,
the way that he sliced it as well. Yeah, it's weird. I don't think he's been Palladino's coached him particularly well. I know he's had his problems off the pitch, the legal case before Christmas and everything. Maybe that had an impact early on.
But he's a good shooter of the ball.
Fantastic, yeah. I want to see him play more. I want to see him start all the time with Keane. Like, I know Beltran, he works hard for the team and stuff, but he's quite an ordinary, average player, to be honest with you. I'm
really impressed with Moise Kean this season and his link-up play, his passing, his movement. Yeah, I'm really impressed by him.
Yeah, Moise Kean, really Fagioli had a great game, and I don't think Fagioli is of Juventus level, but this is a game where Moise Kean and Fagioli played fantastic, and Mandragora also an ex-Juventus player as well.
Yeah,
and he scored. Again, this kind of sums up where Juventus are right now, that the players that they're letting go are performing well, and maybe not Fagioli so much. He's been a little bit inconsistent since joining Fiorentina, but Keane, absolutely. That's
Moise Kean has had a fantastic
been
season.
Shown to be a big mistake, and I was against that sale right from the start. But yeah, it's good win for Fiorentina. Like, they had lost 5 in 6 before the Panathinaikos game, I think, and now 2 big wins in a row in Europe, and then this, and they've got their season back on track. They're 5.
They got Atalanta away after the international break, and then Milan, so it's going to be tricky.
It's going to be tricky, but they put themselves back in like the fight for Europe and Champions League. 5 points.
I still think that Fiorentina should focus on the Conference League. I really think so, because reaching a final there is you never know with Chelsea either.
It's a tricky one because they've got Real Betis in the semi-final, which is going to be very tough as well. Italian teams just don't beat Spanish teams generally either right now. So I mean, I think it is tough. It's hard to see. Put it this way: it's the hardest route to winning that trophy that they will have had in these 3 years. I mean, they were playing like furniture stores for the last 2 years, basically. And I don't know who they played in the quarterfinals.
Celje
Celje.
from Celje from Slovenia. I
Yeah,
think.
there you go. We're like fourth in the Slovenian league, so I think they'll be fine there. But
But
yeah, no, really,
it was a
really good.
game. I enjoyed, and I have to say that Fiorentina shirt that they wore in that game was stunning. We talk about beautiful shirts. That was one of the most beautiful shirts that we've seen in a long time. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. The purple that goes into kind of blue black, and it was stunning. It was beautiful. No, they played really well, and they looked like fired up, and they looked like they were a good place.
And they looked fresh.
Very
They'd only
fresh.
played 3 days before in a tough,
They rotated quite a bit though,
they
but still
rotated
they
a
looked
bit, but
fresh.
they're playing a Juventus team that have had like a whole week, and
Yeah, yeah,
I thought at least Juventus should be the fresher of the teams. Well, it wasn't.
yeah.
It was
No,
it was Fiorentina that had all the energy. So again, credit to Palladino for that. But
absolutely.
yeah, good. Atalanta, Fiorentina get back on track, and they'll be feeling happy now going into the international break. As will Bologna, who, I mean, wow, what a performance from Bologna. They absolutely destroy Lazio 5-0, and as a result, move fourth in the table. They're in brilliant form. Only Roma in better form in Serie A right now. But in 2025, they've got one loss in 15 games in 2025. Now they've got 4 wins in a row. Um, and they also have Venezia and Empoli as the next game. They do have a tough end to the season after that, but Venezia and Empoli, who you back them to win that, I mean, they can put themselves in a position there after those 2 games to be maybe even pull away a little bit in the top 4 race. I mean, I think we have to say right now they have a real chance to go on and finish 4th now.
They could even finish third. I mean, it's not impossible. If you look at Atalanta's run with the games they've got coming up
And the form they're in.
and the form they're in, the inconsistency, and then you look at Bologna and you look at their consistency and you look at the form they're in, and I wouldn't surprise me if they did. And if they, I mean, it's, like you said, they got Empoli in the Coppa, but they got Venezia, and then they got Napoli, Atalanta, Inter, and then they got Udinese, Juve, Milan. But I mean, I think they can, they just need to focus on what they're doing. But I have to say,
Yeah, correction.
more
Sorry, the Empoli game is a
a
Coppa
Coppa,
game.
yeah.
Yeah, my bad.
But
Yeah.
listen, what I want to say more than anything, that 5th goal that Fabian scores, the movement, the passing, the positional shifts, the play was absolutely stunning. Is one of the team goals of the season. It was true poetry in motion. And this season, they Vincenzo Italiano's defense has also been much better, much defensively more solid. He's actually worked on defense, understanding that you can't just attack. He's matured. Put it to you this way: he's matured a lot, and this is great news because he is a young Italian coach who a lot of people have been very, very expecting that this could be another great Italian coach. And what he's doing,
He's moved on to the next level this
he has taken a step this season. And again, when we talk about young, learning on the job kind of coaches coming to an environment that is stable, that works, where things are in order, Bologna is that place. Thiago Motta did a fantastic job there. Vincenzo Italiano's doing an even better job because he doesn't have as good as players that Motta did last season. And he's doing a fantastic job. And it's just the football they're playing is just an absolute beauty,
It's fantastic,
poetry
yeah.
to watch. I mean, there's the movement, the it's straight off the training ground,
No,
and it's
and the
just
attack as well is really firing. Like that was a criticism. Like they used to like create a lot of chances at Fiorentina and not put them away, but they're now creating and they're putting them away and they're scoring a lot of goals. And Odegaard has really, really taken a step up. And Doy, I've always said, I think there's a
Yeah,
player
Darren Doy.
in Doy that's waiting to explode, but needs to improve his final ball. He needs to improve his shooting, but the raw abilities are there. He's improving. Orsolini is doing well. Castro as well scored again, and looks like an interesting player, number 9 as well for his age and
The
how strong
left
he
back,
is.
Juan Miranda. I mean,
Yeah.
all of them, and even Calabria's looking outstanding. Lewis Ferguson is back and doing great. No, it's a functional team. Bukema and
Bukema, I think,
Lukemi.
will join a bigger club. I
Yeah,
think
I'm sure he
I
will.
think he's been fantastic. Very complete defender, both ways, even on the ball as
I
well.
don't know. I've got a bit of question marks around him defensively, but yeah, he's had a great season, as has Lukumi. But no, look, it's a solid team. It's a solid team that it's is well drilled, well coached, tactically very, very solid. They play and when they play like this, when you give them time on the ball and allow them to pass, they just rip you apart. It's a really, really, they're probably the most entertaining team to watch in the Serie A right now, if we're perfectly honest. The way that they
Mm.
move and attack is truly beautiful. And again, that 5th goal, go and watch it. It is stunning, absolutely stunning. It really is one of those. It's one of the team goals of the season.
Yeah,
They
for
just
sure.
they
But as for
just
Lazio,
swarmed Lazio.
I think this is the first time this season that Lazio are starting to struggle physically and starting to slow down. Like, we've praised them all season about what an incredible job Baroni has done, first season in 2 competitions, but also like the way that Lazio have looked so strong, so fit, so intense throughout the season in both competitions. But I think over the last month or so, especially, they've started to slow down, and that's shown in their form. They've won 2 of their last 8, and they haven't been playing well in their recent games. I mean, I actually thought they were actually a little bit fortunate to go through against Victoria Pilsen. And if you look at how they
They
went through in
were,
that
yeah.
tie, I mean, I thought they played bad in both games. They only won the first game with 9 men with a goal, moment of magic from Isaacson in the 98th minute. And then in the second leg, they're losing 1-0. It looks like it's going to extra time. They score off a corner for a bit of a goalkeeping mistake. So they're kind of quite fortunate to go through that. And 1 win in 5 in Serie A, and then they obviously get absolutely hammered, maybe a little bit tired as well going into this game after the Europa League, which probably played a part, but still, it's the first time that we're seeing them slow down, and obviously, yeah, that's they should be 4th now because Juventus have lost their last 2 games. It's been there for them to go 4th, and they could only draw with Udinese, and then they got hammered here. So yeah, I just think that probably the international breaks come at a good time for them. Let's say that.
Yeah, absolutely, because they need to recuperate, they need to rest, they need to regain, find their form, they need to find their feet, they need to find themselves mentally. It's been very intense for them. This international break, usually I'm not very happy about that many international breaks, but we've not had very many international breaks, and I'm actually really, really happy that the teams get a chance to recover and rest, because of the amount of injuries and mental fatigue and psychologically playing like this before we go into April. That's going to be mental. um, I think it's good for everyone to kind of find their, if you're Lazio and Inter, you are thrilled that there's an international break. If you're Bologna, maybe not so much, because when you're on fire, you want to just continue playing all the time. A break is not what you need. If you're Juventus, you just want the season to end. But other than that, it's no, it's interesting, because I still think that Lazio, given the draw they've got in the Europa League, I think this is time to back to the drawing board. Rest, land, and then focus on that Europa League game, because Bodø Glimt, Norwegian side, they're a tricky side. They need to pay attention, but this is a team that they should be beating. They should be in the semi-finals. And once there, it's either Frankfurt or Tottenham, which is going to be very, very difficult. So,
Lazio playing as they were 2 months ago, I'd back to beat Frankfurt and Tottenham. But Lazio playing as they are now, no. So
no.
is they need to get back on it. Hopefully the international break will help. Roma, though, got over the disappointment of losing to Athletic Bilbao They win again against Cagliari, 1-0. Dovbyk gets the winner. 6 wins now in a row in Serie A. Is that right? Or was it 7 now? I've lost count. Last 13 games in Serie A unbeaten, 10 wins, 3 draws. And they are, now it's official. They are right in the top 4 race. And maybe the favourites for the top 4 now that they're out of the Europa League as well. The way that they're playing, they're 7th, but they're only 4 points off Bologna in 4th. They're only 3 points behind Juventus now. They're above Milan, above Fiorentina, 2 points behind Lazio. I mean, the way that they're going now,
Yeah, but if you look at the games they've got, I mean, the Juve, Lazio, Inter, Fiorentina, Atalanta, Milan, we have to be fair. Yes, what Nonno has done is unbelievable. God bless him. He's been exactly what Roma need. He's given them stability. He's given them structure. He's given them calm. But they have had a favourable run-in.
They've had a favourable run-in, yeah. I mean, it is a very tough run-in, but I think that the comeback to that is that a lot of teams have tough run-ins. I mean, Atalanta have a really tough run-in. Milan have quite a few tough games still left. They've got Napoli next. And the other teams, as we've said before, Bologna have got a very tough run-in as well. Yeah. But as we said before, you can't back Juventus to beat anyone right now. Fiorentina, we think, will probably drift away. So, I mean, I think that they've got a big chance the way they're playing.
No,
and they're only playing
once
a week. They're only playing once a week as well. So
they do.
I mean, I know Dybala was in tears on the bench after the injury. They want to hope that obviously that's not a serious injury. But I mean, they're looking fantastic. I'm just so gutted that I honestly think they could have won the Europa League if it wasn't for Hummels. You've discussed it on the pod on Thursday. If it wasn't for that red card against Athletic Bilbao, I really think they could have got through that tie. Would have been tough, but they could have got through that tie, and I think they would have gone on and won the competition. I really believe that, and I'm so gutted that they had to play that game with 10 men for 80 minutes, because once that red card, it's all over. You're not surviving in San Mamés in the Basque Country against this Athletic Bilbao with 10 men for 80 minutes. You're not. It was over as soon as that red card. I'm just gutted about that. Gutted.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's that Hummels brain dead move was just so unnecessary too. I mean, the way that he faffs with the ball like he does, and it was clumsy and unnecessary.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It was. I mean, I know there's been a lot of debate in the last few days. I mean, I saw Daniele Dani going mad about it. I've seen some others say that they think he got the ball, but I do kind of agree with you. I think that by the way that the rules apply today, if you get the ball but you clean out the man as well afterwards, these get given, and the only question for me is whether you can say he was so far away from goal, being on the halfway line, and the ball was cleared. The ball went slightly to the left. Whether, I think it was Wrench, whether he could have got back. I mean, I think that's really probably the debate to be had. But I think that, listen, if that had happened against an Italian team and that wasn't a red card, we'd have gone mad. So
yeah,
I just at the end of the day, he shouldn't have put himself in that position. It's just madness, really, from him. Yeah, I'm gutted. Also in the top 4 race, let's race through the rest of this quickly now. So Milan, they come from behind again, and it's really Pulisic and Reijnders, who, let's be honest, probably Milan's only 2 players who have performed up to standard this season. Is that fair to say? That they're the only 2 that really have performed as they should? And they made the difference.
I think in terms of consistency, yes, without a doubt. I think Pulisic and Reijnders has been outstanding. For me, he's been Milan's by far best player this season. But if I think those 2 are have been few shining lights in terms of a season that's been quite a shit show for Milan, without a doubt. But Pulisic continues to score important goals. He continues to be decisive. Reijnders, the same thing there. It's they keep coming back, but at the same time, I don't know how you feel, but when I watch Milan, I don't trust them. It's like when I watch Juve, I don't trust them to win.
No, absolutely.
Like, I don't know. It's just they just feel so fragile defensively and mentally.
No,
And
they do, and they always seem to go behind, and they always
yeah,
seem to just.
although it's sign of strength to come back from a goal down and keep winning. That is unbelievable.
No,
That
they
is,
do seem to. Conceição, that is the one thing that Conceição has had, which is he has managed to get them to fight back. And they go behind, they play badly. Conceição desperately makes these early subs, and they fight back. I mean, it's just the same kind of repetitive repeat. He repeats all the time, doesn't it? And they get a win here, probably without really deserving it. I think draw would have probably been fair. But they've managed to get themselves back in the top four race. I mean, they're 5 points behind Juve, 6 points behind Bologna. They still have to play Bologna as well, but again, they also have some tough fixtures coming up. I mean, they've got Napoli away next, and they have I think they've still got Atalanta at home, Roma away, they've got Bologna. So I mean, again, lots of tough matches, and they need to play better if they are going to somehow try and manage to rescue that top four, aren't they? And there's a lot of teams to overtake, so it's a big ask. It's a big ask, but it's a crucial win. It's a good win. Um, the other thing I wanted to just discuss is Dele Alli's red card. I feel awful for the guy, the poor guy. Not played in 2 years. He's been through hell off the pitch. If anybody knows his story, his upbringing, and everything, what he's been through, the trauma and the effect that's had on him in later life. He comes on, it's a beautiful story, and he's sent off within 10 minutes. I know this has had a little bit of a debate as well, but I actually thought it was a nice gesture from Kyle Walker. I did.
yeah, me too.
I mean, I
thought it
see
was
some people
nice.
criticising him. You're only 2-1 up. You shouldn't do that. Your team could. But look, the referee's not going to change his mind because Kyle Walker's asking asking him not to send him off. I thought it was a nice gesture from Kyle Walker, and he's somebody that hasn't had much positive PR, let's say, for quite a while. And I thought that was a nice gesture from him.
Yeah, same. I agree. I thought it was nice, and it was nice to see Ruben Loftus-Cheek and him WhatsApp chat, and Dele Alli published it, and now it's nice to see when people come together like that. Some things are more important than just the performance and result on the pitch, and I thought it was a nice touch from Kyle Walker. I thought it was a nice touch overall, but no, it is a red card. You can't stamp someone in the back of it. Like, come on,
No.
he didn't do it on purpose, but still, I mean,
Yeah, let's just say he was his timing's a bit off after two
yeah,
after 2 years out. Yeah.
you could say his timing is a bit. I don't think there was any intent. He didn't want to hurt his mate.
Like when you haven't done any exercise for like a
Yeah,
long time, and you do some exercise, and it's like you kind of have to learn how to move your legs again, kind of thing.
yeah.
It's like it doesn't feel right. Right, the rest of the weekend fixtures: Genoa 2, Lecce 1, Monza 1, Parma 1, Udinese 0, Verona 1. I don't know how Verona keep doing this. Torino 1, Torino 1, Empoli 0. Like Verona have had so many thrashings this season, and you just think that this has to be a team that's for relegation. Yet they look like good, good. They're well positioned. They're still somehow well positioned to avoid the drop. It's don't know how they do it, but yeah, Empoli increasingly in trouble as well.
It's not. Yeah, it's Lecce, and I'm worrying. I worry a lot for Lecce, Empoli. I really do. I think Venezia and Monza, we can kind of assume they're down, but Empoli, it looks like they're going down, and it's just.
Yeah, 3 points from safety. I mean, it's still 9 games left. There's still time, but the problem is they're not winning games, and same with Venezia. I think Venezia have got like 4 draws in a row now. They just can't win matches.
No.
Yeah,
But
okay.
to be fair, out of those 4 draws, have been against Napoli, Atalanta, Lazio, and Como. So the problem isn't there. The problem is when they lose to Udinese and when they lose to
Yeah, no, for
Lecce.
sure. This season, Venezia, their problem has been not scoring goals. It hasn't been
Yeah,
defensively, which is
yeah,
which hasn't been the case with Di Francesco in recent years. It's always been the other way around. This year,
yeah.
it's been because their attackers are generally really not good enough,
Mm.
but defensively, they've actually been pretty good, to be honest with you.
But Venezia's. I mean, for them, they got Bologna after the international break. Then they have the 3 games that will decide it, and that is Lecce away, Monza at home, Empoli away. Like,
Hmm.
if they win 9 points there, then they're out of the danger zone. I mean, for sure. I mean, they're not out of it, but they're definitely they have a really good chance of making it. And then, of course, you got Empoli, who I wonder if they don't sack the manager, which is kind of it's a bit unfair given that D'Aversa is doing what he's done in the Coppa and all the other stuff. But when you haven't won in the league since the 8th of December, I mean, it's something has to give. And then they got but they do have Cagliari, they got Venezia, they got Monza and Parma and Verona all to play for, so they're not they're still in it. But yeah, it's crazy. But I do also have to say I really worry about Lecce, because they do have a tough run in. Probably the toughest one of all these teams, and it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good at all.
Yeah, for sure. Right, let's finish off before we get to Baggio Premface and Serie ASS of the week with let's do a preview of Italy versus Germany. This Thursday is the first leg of the UEFA Nations League Group A quarterfinal. The first leg is on Thursday at San Siro. The second leg on Sunday at Westfalen Stadion in Dortmund. So yeah, big game for the Nations League. Let's go through the Italy squad first, and we can have a quick reaction to what we think of the squad that Luciano Spalletti has picked. So the goalkeepers are Donnarumma, Meret, and Vicario. The defenders are Bastoni, Buongiorno, Calafiori, Cambiasso, Comuzzo, Di Lorenzo, Gatti, Ruggeri, Udogi, and midfielders are Barella, Casadei, Fratesi, Ricci, Rovella, Tonali, and the forwards are Keane, Luca, Maldini, Politano, Raspadori, Retegui, and Zaccagni. So it's first call-ups for Casadei and Jerry, recalls for Luca, Comuzzo, Politano, and Zaccagni. Di Marco, Pizzilli, and Okoli dropped. Di Marco's injured. There's a possibility Cambiasso might be injured as well after he went off in Juventus' game against Fiorentina, so we might lose him as well. I would expect probably someone to be called up in his place. I would imagine Bellanova probably, or it has to be a right wing back. There isn't anyone else. So first of all, what do you think of the squad? I think that generally, I think the players that should be in there are in there. The only things I'm not probably happy with, I think Di Gregorio and Carnesecchi should be the number 2 and number 3 instead of Meret and Vicario. And I think that also, I think that I'm happy Zaccagni's got a chance because of the form he's got in. Let's see if he can work in his formation. But in terms of players that shouldn't be there, I think that Maldini hasn't done enough to warrant being in the squad. I like the idea of giving him a chance, but he really hasn't done anything since this season, to be honest with you, including after Giornata. And Casadei, I like the idea of giving him a chance, but I think it's a little bit too
What
soon.
has he done to be called up?
Let him play a little bit more for Torino first. Before.
Yeah.
But other than that, largely, I haven't got too many complaints. Other than that,
I'm really happy that Ruggeri got a call up. I think he's been great this season. I think he deserves it. I'm happy.
Really, I think he's been I think he's taken a step back this season, and he's not even getting the Atalanta team right now. That was the other one that I'm not. That I don't think. I don't agree with.
Ruggeri. I like that. I like that he plays them. No, for me, the goalkeepers Vicario, Meret this season. Nah, come on, like.
Yeah,
Meret as a third goalkeeper, fine. Vicario, no, absolutely not. Carnesecchi any day of the week, without a doubt.
Yeah,
like
agreed.
It's
agreed.
That to me just makes no sense. But I have to say the Ricci, Tonali, Rovella, Barella midfield I really like. I really like that. It's in Fratesi deserves to be there. I mean, he's been Spalletti's guy since he took over. Scored the most goals under him. But no, I mean, there's not.
Yeah, I think centrally we look strong in defence, centrally strong in midfield, a little bit weak, very weakened at wing back because of the injuries to Di Marco and probably Cambiasso, I'm imagining. So yeah, those are probably our strong areas. And then the attack again, we let's see if Retegui and Keane have had great club seasons. Keane, we need to see him start to do something for the Italy national team. Can they play together? I'm not convinced they can, but let's see if they get given a chance, see if they can do something together. I don't think so. But they're
I
both
think you might
there.
be
They both
right.
deserve
I
to be
think you might
there.
be right. I think you might be right. I think they are.
They both deserve to be there, even if it's a backup. One of them's a
Oh,
backup to the other.
no,
Yeah.
absolutely. But I think Keane and Retegui, it could work, but it's not a natural fit, if that makes sense. Um, Raspadori and Keane or Raspadori and Retegui works better.
Yeah, because he's a
Put it that way.
support striker. I mean, Raspadori
Yeah.
deserves to be there. He's done well since coming into the changed formation 3-5-2 at Napoli. Politano, I find is a strange one. I don't really get that, especially given his age and how old he'll be at the World
No,
Cup.
I understand why he's gone for him, because for Napoli he can play. He's played both as a wing back and as a winger. So
Oh,
it
that's
makes
a good
sense.
point. Actually, I didn't think about that. So he might actually end up playing as right wing back in this game.
Yeah. No, he could do that. Like, it's not, and also what Politano's done is, okay, the quality might not have always been the best, but the guy sacrifices himself so much. Like, and
Yeah, fair play. I mean, if Conte has converted him, does a kind of Ivan Perisic on him, then well done. That's all I can say. Because I never would have had him as a potential wing back, never in a million years. But I said the same about Perisic. Um, I've said the same about other players as well. Victor Moses and people like that, and he still manages to convert them into wing backs. But yeah, okay, fair enough. You won me over on that. As a wing back, yes. As an attacker, I don't see it. Doesn't make any sense to me. I'm
I
glad.
think that what
Yeah.
Spalletti's done here is he's brought, and when I look at that squad, I'm a little bit because it's like he said he was going to play a 3-5-2, but I see players there and I'm thinking, is he going back to this bloody 4-3-3 again? Is he
Well,
going to start faffing with
we'll
the
see.
formation?
We'll see about that, because with Politano, unless he's playing him as a wing back, I think he's called him as a wing back. I do, because in this original squad, Cambiasso is the only right wing back in the squad, unless you're counting Politano. So why would you take only one right wing back to a two match game, a two-legged game? I don't think you do. You've got to take two, surely. So that, for me, that suggests that Politano's been called up as a wing back. So that removes that worry. And then as for Zaccagni's the only. If we're discounting Politano, then Zaccagni's the only one that you can count in this squad that you say, well, he doesn't fit the 3-5-2 or the 3-5-1-1. But if you've watched Zaccagni play this season, he's been genuinely, as we said last week, been one of the best players in Serie A this season. He's been
Yeah.
absolutely brilliant. It's just, how can you not call him up? So I just think that it's worth calling him up, giving him a try in this 3-5-1, 3-5-2. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. You don't use him. But to not even try, let's at least give it a go, because he's playing so well that you just cannot ignore him. So
No, you can't.
that's my take on it. But I guess we will see. Germany squad. I'll read it out quickly. So the goalkeepers are Baumann, Nubel, Ortega. Defenders Bisek, Kimmich, Koch, Mittelstadt, Raum, Rudiger, Schlotterbeck, Tar. Midfielders Adeyemi, Amiri, Andrik, Goretzka, Gross, Leveling, Musiala, Sane, Stiller. And the strikers are Burkhardt, Kleindienst, and Deniz Undav. So Bisek gets his first call up from Inter for the squad. Amiri's back in the squad for the first time in 5 years. It's a team that is obviously stacked in the midfield, attacking midfield, and the wingers, but they are without Florian Wirtz, Havertz, and Gnabry. So that's big positives for especially Wirtz, because he's obviously a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful player. So that's the Germany squad. Probable formations. It's still very early. We're recording this on Monday, so we're looking at, for Italy, probably Donnarumma, Buongiorno, Calafiori, and Bastoni. Possibly Di Lorenzo could play as a right wing back, but if Cambiasso is out, then Di Lorenzo could potentially play as a right wing back, in which case it would be Buongiorno, Calafiori, Bastoni, you think, or Di Lorenzo goes right wing back, and maybe whoever comes in, if it's a Bellanova, if he gets called up instead of Cambiasso, or like we said, you play Politano as a right wing back, possibly. We'll see. But probably more likely Di Lorenzo at right wing back, and then Barella, Tonali, Fratesi in the midfield. Ricci could potentially take one of those roles, and then left wing back, we're probably looking at Udogie. I would say is probably more likely right now, and then up front there is talk that he's going to give Keane and Retegui a chance together. So we will see. But if not, we're looking at maybe Raspadori and Retegui. as the front two. But let's see that. As for Germany, it'll be a 4-2-3-1. Nubel, and then defence, Kimmich, Koch, Slotterbeck, Mittelstadt. Koch's been said to be the likely centre-back partner of Slotterbeck rather than Rudiger, which surprises me, but I guess we will see over the course of the week how that plays out. Andrić and Goretzka holding, and then Sane, Musiala and Adeyemi probably likely there, and Undav up front. So, yeah, what's your take? Where do you think this game will be won and lost, and what's your prediction?
Oh, the midfield. I think it's about midfield, and also I think that I think Germany's attack is not so good compared to the rest of the squad. In terms of I think Havertz, Gnabry, Wirtz missing is a lot. But then again, they have Sane, Musiala, and Adeyemi. So
Yeah, they're all
it's,
excellent. Well, Musiala's unreal. I mean, he's just an
yeah,
unbelievable player.
Yeah.
And Adeyemi always gets more criticism than I think he is. I mean, he's got lightning pace and ability to take players on. His final product's not always the best, but he still scares the hell out of you. And I would not want him against Di Lorenzo in a one-on-one. Put it that way.
No,
So.
No, it is. But it's a weakened Germany side. I give Italy. I think Italy can fancy their chances, and I really want Italy to win this because, like, I want them to have the easier quote unquote World Cup qualifiers.
Yeah, if they win the group, they're in with they're in a 14 group, aren't they? If they lose, they go into a 5-team group.
Yeah, I think it's something like that, and it's a much more easier and like manageable group if they were to win that game against or the double header. So yeah, it's I prefer that if they did, but well, it's I still can't get excited about these stupid nations. I just find it such a ugh. Do you know what I mean? It's just
well, if they win their group, just to clarify on that, if they win, they will be in the group with Slovakia, Northern Ireland, and Luxembourg.
yeah,
That will be their group. But it's only a 14 group, which I don't like.
Yeah.
It doesn't give you much room for error.
What room for error?
Yeah.
It's Luxembourg, Slovakia, and whatever.
Yeah. Well, if they lose, they're in with Norway, Estonia, Moldova, and the state that we will not name. So that's
and Norway's tricky.
Yeah, Norway's dangerous. Yeah.
You don't know where you got. I mean, Sørloth, Haaland.
Yeah.
It's not. They're a decent side. Norway, Ødegaard, Hauge. I mean, they're a decent side.
Yeah, for sure.
Torsby, Torsvedt. I mean, no, they're a decent side. I'd rather they play Luxembourg and Slovakia, and
Well, we'll see. So prediction for the first leg.
Ooh, this is a difficult one. I don't know. I think we'll see a draw, and then I think it'll be decided on the second leg.
I'm going to go 2-1 Italy. 2-1 Italy for the first leg, and then second leg, it's could go. It's tough. I mean, Germany are favourites. Let's be honest. Germany are favourites, but they got some important players missing, and that will definitely help us. Right, let's finish off with Baggio, Premface, and Serie ASS of the week. So, Baggio, I've got 3. I have, first of all, Donnarumma's performance against Liverpool in the Champions League. Absolutely brilliant. 2 fingers up to all the critics that have been hating on him. Absolutely brilliant in that penalty shootout. I'm going to say it now. I think he's the greatest goalkeeper of all time on penalty shootouts. Honestly, I don't think there's anyone better. There's no one that I would want more. If I had to pick a goalkeeper to be in my team for a penalty shootout, I would pick Donnarumma. His record on penalty shootouts he's won 6 of the 7 penalty shootouts in his career, and his record in England saving penalties is absolutely unreal. I think he's 7 of the 12 penalties he's faced in England have either been saved or missed, and I think he's saved his last 3. Of those penalty shootouts, his last 3 plus 3, 6. He saved 5 of the last 6 penalties he's had against him in England. Have been missed or saved. So it's just like he's just fills up the whole goal. He's a monster. And he always dives the right way as well. He's a monster on penalties. That's number 1. Number 2, yeah, Walker's nice little act towards Dele Alli against Como, and then also I don't know if anyone's seen this, but just YouTube it or go onto social media, onto Twitter. Rino Gattuso's tirade
In
against
3 languages,
yeah.
English, Spanish, and Italian.
Yeah, his tirade against
on live TV.
Former Croatia player turned journalist, Josko Jelicic. He went absolutely insane against him after his team, Hajduk Split is his team, isn't it? His team lost, and he refused to. He says, "I'm not shaking your hand. You disrespect me." And then he just went on a massive tirade against him, live TV. You have to watch it to see it.
It's 4 or 5 minutes of pure glory. I've got 2, and because you've not allowed me to speak about the relegation race that much, but this is partly the reason why I love the Italian relegation race. Even the relegation race, they produce magical moments. Boni's equalizer for Parma against Monza is one of the goals of the season. It is absolutely to die for. Go and watch that. It's stunning. Absolutely stunning. Just brilliant piece of individual skill. Really one of the candidates for goals of the season. And when Hellas beat Udinese, Andre Duda's free kick, which for the winner, is a stunner. It's one of the most beautiful free kicks I've seen, and it's just the relegation battle in Serie A is the best because it produces these moments, not just for the drama, but the quality it can produce the goals as well. It's just unbelievable. And this weekend we saw 2 absolute stunners.
Yeah, that's your allotted time over on the relegation race. Right, so Premface of the week.
Yeah, 442 did a 15-20 minute documentary on the San Siro Stadium situation, and it was all right. You know, they tried to bring all sides of it. They did the research. There's only one problem with that. They referred to the Milan derby, or the Derby della Madonnina, as the Derby della Maradona. And for some reason, they used a photo of Diego Maradona in the opening game of 1990 World Cup, where Argentina versus Cameroon. Like, it's like, what the hell?
Like, yeah, I mean, I don't believe that.
Go and watch it. I'll put the link in there.
I don't believe that is possible. Oh my god, who was the presenter? Like, who was?
I have no idea. It was just a clip. There was no one, like, they didn't show who was talking.
Just think how many people that needs to get through before they get published as well.
No, because the rest of it was good, but Derby della Maradona, and then a photo of Maradona against Cameroon from Italia 90.
That is bizarre, isn't it?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, then we have, he's on it every single week, doesn't he? So Jamie Carragher. So Jamie Carragher, after PSG beat Liverpool on penalties in the Champions League, he starts moaning after the game, how basically, like, intimating how it's unfair that basically he says that PSG won. He goes, well, PSG must have won the coin toss at the end of the game when they decide, before the penalties. But he says it's unfair that not only did they get to choose the end where they were taken. They decided not to go in front of the Kop end, of course, but they also got to take the first penalty. And statistically, if you take the first penalty, you've got a much higher chance of winning penalty shootouts than if you take the second penalty. And he said that it's not fair that you win the coin toss and you get to change. And he was almost like intimating, like, they've been basically it was an injustice and everything. That obviously, this is Jamie Carragher. He's paid well, very well, overpaid to do this job, and he doesn't know that there are 2 coin tosses before a penalty shootout.
He just likes to whinge, doesn't he? He's just, oh god.
But it was also quite funny. Did you see the picture of him after the game? Because he sat in the Kop end, and he looked. I mean, did you see how red he was? Yeah, he did look like a tomato. Right, 3 other quick ones. First of all, back to Donnarumma, staying on the PSG game. Alan Shearer, who was commentating on the game, basically accused Donnarumma of faking an injury at 1-0 in the second half when the tie is level. Why would you fake injury when the tie is level? So that was that. Also, a lot of Liverpool.
But this is the best one, I think.
Yeah, so TNT had a bit of a shocker on Europa League Thursday last week. So the TNT commentator of Athletic Bilbao against Roma said, I quote, Inaki and Nico Williams aren't related. One is Ghanaian and the other is Spanish, which was fantastic. And then the TNT commentator on Man United versus Real Sociedad said, in Sociedad last week, it was a 1-1 draw. In Sociedad. Sociedad is not a place, by the way.
No, yeah.
It means, to translate it, it means society in Spanish. Fantastic.
Yeah, if it had said at Sociedad, it would have been different, but in Sociedad. But yeah, and then we have one more Premface as well from Mark Thoreau.
Yeah, this is Serie ASS of the week, no?
Well, no, it's Premface because
okay.
it's the TNT commentator had a shocker, saying that during Inter Feyenoord, he said Inter might play Bayern Munich in a repeat of the 2010 final where Gabriel Milito scored both goals.
I've seen
His
that
brother,
before. I've seen
central
that
defender.
before.
No, but they've had quite a few this week. My Serie A was actually this week was actually, what's his name, Gattuso. I thought it was brilliant. I thought that is vintage Italian meltdowns on TV. Football meltdowns on TV are just. Mwah.
Gattuso has done this before as well. Remember, sometimes it may be good, sometimes it may be shit.
Yeah, he's given us some. He's given us some classics for sure.
I love him. Okay, well, let's leave it at that. I hope you all enjoyed that 500th episode. Thank you once again for everything over these 500 episodes. Many more to come, hopefully. We'll be back later in the week with a Q&A episode and then a post-match reaction to Italy against Germany on Thursday evening.
Yeah, and that's for patrons only.
Patrons only. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's leave it at that. Until next time, ciao, ciao.